Already started too. So, hi everyone, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Orlando Alteryx user group. We're going to get started today with some quick announcements, then some tips and tricks, and then Kayla's here to present for us from Homeward Bound on Salesforce with Alteryx. And then we will also have our usual troublesome workflow session. So if you do have any workflows that you're having issues with, if you want to save those for the end, then we can always go through them. And we do stop the recording for that, but it will be visible to everyone. So if you do have some private data, reach out to some of the other users offline. And so what I did want to get today started off with is Inspire's coming up here shortly. And if you haven't purchased your ticket yet, are looking for a free ticket, which is always fun, right? I would definitely recommend checking out the Road to Inspire information on the Alteryx user group. And if you go on to the community page, what you can see is they want to see some short videos or images which kind of go through two different areas and address questions like, how does Alteryx allow you to kick ass at your work, and also show what you do to fulfill your passion outside of work. So you saw some rock climbing there. If you want to share like what it's like in your office every day, if you guys are giving each other high fives while running some workflows, that's the perfect opportunity to kind of do that. So you can check out that video and the page as well. It's going to be right here. And I'll go ahead and share this link with you guys as well in the chat. And what this is actually meant to do is for everyone to share their stories, and they have a handful of people who are selected come on stage during the Inspire conference, and they do normally give out these, actually they're pretty nice awards. Let's see if sure. This one. Yeah, they have some more swag. So they do have some amazing awards that they give out as well, in addition to being recognized on the community. And then you also get sharing the inspiration for it too. And then the next thing I wanted to discuss is actually we have the Alteryx for Good National Volunteer Week coming up. So if you are interested in volunteering, we are going to be putting up a page immediately after this on the Orlando Alteryx user group page to sign up to volunteer. And what we'll be doing is we will have a separate meeting in March for the volunteers, and we'll go through some different options and scheduling as well, so we can set up some time to volunteer. And that should be the week of April 15th to the 22nd, which is closer to the tail end of the month. Does anybody have any questions about volunteering, or have you volunteered before with us and would like to share your experience?
So I noticed there's a lot of people getting into the call almost now. So you guys know we're just going through some announcement, and the presentation for Salesforce is coming up soon. Yeah.
Emil, why don't you share a little bit of your experience with us in regards to how was the Alteryx for Good volunteering last time when we did that at Give Kids a World?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, we did a lot of things with them in regards to helping, the kids for it's a thing that we have here for theme parks where they donate a lot of money to this company, the nonprofit that allows people with disabilities or kids that are very sick to come to the parks, and they stay there with their family. So they provide, um, reservations, hotels. I mean, transportation. So we help, doing different things. We help in the cafeteria. We help in the pool area. We help with different things that where we were able to help others that are also volunteers. So it was pretty amazing, and we will also talk to them about how can we do things with data, be able to help them with some of the stuff that they have data related and using Alteryx. So that's something that we're hoping to do soon. Yep.
And I mean, if that going and physically volunteering isn't your cup of tea, we did also find another
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to help the greater good on Kaggle, which is actually owned by Google now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a data scientist platform. Don't know how many people know about Kaiva, but what Kaiva actually is they um, do crowdsource funding to help people in third world countries to start businesses. And
Mm-hmm.
what they're actually asking for is help assessing the welfare of the borrowers. So that way they can do risk assessments for who they're trying to lend money to. So this could be a great opportunity to help a very community-driven and nonprofit, um, which I know that this is near and dear to our presenter's heart, and she will have some things that she can share as well in regards to how you can go out and build. But this is another opportunity to kind of flex your skills, and this is a little more private, but you can work with some data that is for good and then get a better understanding of how you can help maybe some of the local nonprofits here in the area. And again, that's on Kaggle, and you can just look for Kaiva crowdfunding, and it'll pop right up. And we'll share this link again as well on the user group page. And then now for one of your favorite parts, the tips and tricks. So this one, Emil, can you explain what the Explorer box is?
Oh yeah, this Explorer box would allow you to actually add the type of messages, like if you're doing a workflow and you want to other people are allowed to look at this workflow. It would allow you to maybe let's say add your name, a title, and a little bit more information about what is this workflow about, and it will help you to know, like, if you're reusing this workflow, or if you find it, and then who created it, when. So you can add those type of information there. It's pretty helpful, and I think
Yeah,
you can use
so
it for other things too, right?
so you have the comments box, which can really help with sharing information like that. So let's dive in here real quick. So you do have the comments box,
Mhm.
and probably the easiest way to show something like this would be some of the crew macros. So if you look at how they're structuring when they share things, these are comment
Mhm.
boxes.
Mhm.
So you can share information here, and then also what we're highlighting in this particular image is also what's called the Explorer box.
Mhm.
And let's say, for instance, you're working on a workflow, and let's say you post this workflow in SharePoint, or
Mhm.
it's going out to a SharePoint site, then you can actually see what the end result is in the workflow. Or if you, let's say, for instance, a lot of times I have a workflow that I'm working on and I get stuck, and then I post something on the community to help me figure out the problem. What you can even do is bring in this Explorer box, and what it'll let you do is you can paste in the page or that particular question that you had, and then you can see the feedback. So then you can keep an eye on a conversation related to a specific workflow. And then the next one that we actually wanted to share is on the Orlando user group page. We are starting to get a lot of people coming to us and asking if we have Alteryx developers here in Orlando that we can connect them with. And as these job opportunities come up, we want to share them with you in the easiest and most user-friendly way as possible. And the best way we could think of to do that is actually post that on the Alteryx community. So you can see at Adventus, where I currently work, there are 2 positions open, and ironically, we're looking for people with Salesforce and Alteryx experience. So Kayla, if you are interested in moving from Phoenix, we do have a place for you. And then Yamil has a position as well that's open. And then if you do have any positions available, please feel free to post that on there. We just ask that you keep it professional. And there were a couple things that we were looking for on there, what the company name is, and then if you have a link to the job description. And if there are any follow-up questions and you are available to comment on it, please share maybe your contact information in relation to that job. And then as soon as the job posting's over, if you do want to pull it down or mark it as completed, that would be great too.
Yeah. I mean, it's also good to know that for everybody that is here in this meeting, I mean, that that's one of the cool things about joining user groups, right? I was yesterday in the Tableau user group, and it was on AAA. We have to drive there, but at least, I mean, you meet so many people, and I'm not kidding. I mean, every time that I go to one of these user groups, I hear about jobs, posting, opportunities. I mean, so that's an added value, of being in user groups, that you meet the people that are in other companies, and if you're looking, or if you want to meet other people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, I mean, this is the best place to do that.
All right, thanks, Andrew and Yamil. I'm really excited to be part of the group today. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big advocate for the exchange of ideas. I like to learn something new every day and share what I know with other people. So I'm super excited to share how I use Salesforce in the nonprofit world and Alteryx as well to make tech accessible for nonprofit. And likewise, I'm really interested, we'll have like a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I'm really interested to learn how you guys use Alteryx, and maybe we can learn from each other. So that said, it's really nice to meet you. As they said, I'm Kayla. My last name is atrocious, so we will feel free not to use it. I'm kind of a nonprofit professional turned Salesforce admin by accident. I joined Homeward Bound, the nonprofit where I work now, back in January of 2017. So I'm relatively green, but the nice thing is that Salesforce makes it easy to learn. And really, I work to feed Tinkerbell and Gator. They're my Argentine dogos, and that's Tinkerbell right there in the picture. I was fortunate enough to earn my admin certification in 6 weeks from the first day that I learned anything about Salesforce. And then I was introduced to Alteryx by Mike Perillo. He's a Tableau admin at GoDaddy and also a user group leader for Alteryx and Tableau. And Trayson Marks, who works for Hart Hanks, and he's also an Alteryx ace. They came to Salesforce Saturday and pitched the idea of Alteryx for good and dealt with my disbelief that I could get something so powerful for free with no strings attached. So I'm currently working on honing my skills, not just through Homeward Bound where I work, but also volunteering for other nonprofits. I'm working with a team of volunteer aspiring Salesforce admins, Josh Wilpinski, who works for Arizona Office Technologies, and Dan Knutsvig, who is a partnership success manager at Odysseyware here in Arizona. And then I'm also kind of combining my love of dogs and fostering with a nationwide dogo organization called DC Dogos. And ironically, that's my Florida connection. The director of DC Dogos is also the president of an industrial construction company in Tampa. So there's a little bit of Florida in me yet. My contact information is on this slide. I will show it again later, so feel free to take my office number, my cell phone number, my email, and definitely keep in touch. So moving on here, a little bit about Homeward Bound, just to give you some context for the presentation. We're a nonprofit that provides pathways out of poverty for homeless families ready to make a change. And what that means is that we basically will screen homeless families with children and look for certain indicators that they might be successful in our program. We try to stabilize with a multi-generational approach to case management and services, not just housing. And we're serving the fastest growing segment of the homeless population in our county. Maricopa County is one of the biggest in the nation. So that encompasses most of the Phoenix metropolitan area. In 2016-17, we had great outcomes. 95% of our clients earned a steady income. Of those who used our employment center, they saw an average $7 per hour wage increase, and I think that number was actually updated to $8 an hour increase. And then a breakdown of our population. We serve around 140 to 150 families a year, and that breaks down to about 333 children and 166 adults, give or take a few. And if you're interested in getting involved, I know it's kind of difficult being so far away, but you could definitely visit our website and make an online donation, check out the services that we provide, check out some of what we're doing with peer-to-peer fundraising and with our young professionals board, just to get some ideas and keep in touch with us. Moving on here, this is a really good kind of depiction, if you will, of how Salesforce and Alteryx combine with Homeward Bound and our organizational needs to really take us to the next level. So what I really like about Salesforce and Alteryx is that there's this democratization of tech and also a different level of corporate citizenship, this idea that everyone every challenge everywhere can be addressed through great technology. So when you choose companies like Salesforce and Alteryx, in addition to investing in yourself, your company, your stakeholders, and your bottom line, you're actually investing in the greater good so that people like me in nonprofit can kind of solve some of our societal challenges. So Salesforce is really valuable to nonprofits. They have what they call a 1-1-1 corporate philanthropy model. So 1% of their product, 1% of their equity, and 1% of their employees' time goes to making the world a better place. I think something like over 3,000 other companies have adopted the same model. And I think someone commented to me the other day that it's amazing how successful an organization can be when they do something for the greater good without necessarily expecting anything in return. And for those who know Salesforce, they're an incredibly big name in the CRM industry because of a lot of the good that they provide. So they have a Power of Us program, which provides 10 free licenses as well as discounts on additional subscription products and services. And they've given that away for free to over 32,000 nonprofits and education institutions to date. So it's kind of the power of a corporate platform adapted for nonprofit. They do a lot of work to take care of their nonprofit and education folks beyond just giving them a free Salesforce org. And it's nice because we can try to integrate multiple business areas on a single platform versus keeping everything housed separately and paying separately for a number of different subscriptions and hardware and so on and so forth. So Salesforce has an app exchange that provides a lot of free or very low-cost apps that are either native or integrations of third-party products to support what goes on in Salesforce. And then there's also the ability to customize through clicks, not code, which means you don't have to be a developer, at least not a coder necessarily, to be successful in building apps on the Salesforce platform. Additionally, there's a community of what they're calling trailblazers. So people who are successful, whether they're new or very experienced, all come together on Trailhead, which is Salesforce's free way to learn Salesforce. The Power of Us Hub, which is a community specifically for nonprofit and higher education users. User groups for the broader Salesforce community, very similar probably to Alteryx user groups. And then also a whole system of certifications and training that really kind of bring everything full circle and empower users. So next I'll talk a little bit about Alteryx. I won't spend too much time because you guys are Alteryx users and you're pretty probably well versed. So I'm sure you've seen the billboard advertisements for apartments that say, you could have been home by now. So I'm going to do a little take on that, and the time that it takes to cover the benefits of Alteryx, I'm actually going to run here a screenshot of the application process for an Alteryx for Good license. So Alteryx is free for nonprofits who have less than $10 million in operating income, which is pretty much every nonprofit ever. And you can apply in under 10 minutes, even 10 minutes is an exaggeration, and receive your key in as little as 1 day. It's super easy to download and install. And like Salesforce, there's a whole community of people who are willing and ready to help. I've really enjoyed the knowledge base materials, and I'm also really excited about the certification process and how easy it is to sign up for that and get certified. User groups, just like this one, and then also the Alteryx for Good collab. I haven't used the collab yet, but I'm really excited to maybe dive into that. We're looking at planning a program services integration for Salesforce, and I'd really love to work Alteryx into that migration. So those of you who volunteer with the collab, thank you so much for what you do, and the need is out there. And also, yes, sir.
Yeah. With the collab, one of the great things, if you guys are interested in volunteering to do that, that is virtual. So if you wanted to help someone like Kayla, what they're able to do is Kayla can go into the portal and look for some interest, let's say like the topic that she had discussed, and select a couple different people with some available meeting times for her, and she can reach out to them and request help from them. And then you schedule a meeting on there where you can discuss what the project would be, and then you can discuss how you can help the nonprofit accomplish that. So this doesn't have to even be somewhere local. So like for Kayla, if you are a nonprofit that's on the call, there are plenty of users that are available out there on Alteryx that are happy to help, and it is free. And then Kayla, I mean, we've got plenty of users here in Orlando. I'm hoping we can ramp up this year and see some more people sign up for that.
And that would be great. I was fortunate to have Mike and Trayson, who kind of walked me through the application process and got me started on my first workflow. And so if there are lots of Mikes and Traysons out there, that you guys are such a valuable resource. And thank you for what you do. And thank you in advance if I end up working with you in the future. So moving on here, we're kind of back to the screen we were looking at before. So where does Homeward Bound kind of fall into this intersection between Alteryx and Salesforce? In the last 1 or 2 years here, Homeward Bound's leadership kind of foresaw drastic reductions in housing and urban development funding for transitional housing. And so what they tried to do was proactively reposition Homeward Bound for success. So we have a 3-year strategic plan that includes goals around increasing and diversifying our fundraising revenue to supplement those reduced funds. And then also, reliable data and efficient tools just to help us be better, smarter fundraisers. That plan also includes goals around getting accredited. We're working with the Council on Accreditation right now on that process. Building profitable quality programs to scale, and establishing precise outcome measurements. So tracking and reporting outcomes across multiple platforms, sometimes inconsistently or not at all, really creates challenges around impact reporting. And gaps in that kind of reporting are really barriers to growth, quality, partnerships, and funding opportunities. You guys are data folks, you understand that. I don't think I have to go into depth there. But what Salesforce does is provide a single connected platform to support our organizational goals, and then Alteryx kind of helps us boost the potential of that platform. So we'll talk a little bit about what Salesforce is for those who may not be quite as familiar, and I really am going to try to pare this down and give you the goods, so to speak, so that I'm not getting too far into the weeds. But Salesforce is an enterprise cloud platform, and I say platform because when I first started learning about Salesforce, I was like, all databases, a database is a database is a database. And so when I started learning about Salesforce and they referred to themselves as a platform, I thought, yeah, right. But it is true, and it's designed to help everyone, and I do mean everyone. People have picked this up with very little tech experience, if any, and gone on to become very successful admins and developers. So it helps everyone build rich, customized CRM solutions. It's kind of a host of integration services, AI, a lot of declarative, but also code-based development tools, process automation, and apps layered on top of a multi-tenant metadata-driven model. So what that means is there's no hardware, there's no software. You have to use less custom code, and that way the updates in real time that happen 3 times a year tend not to break your customizations. So we'll do a little bit more Salesforce 101 here. So Salesforce is comprised of standard and custom objects, which are very much like tables, and fields, which are very much like columns in a table. And those objects work together to support a common business process. And then when they're grouped that way, they're referred to as apps. So Sales Cloud is probably one of their more popular apps, and that includes standard objects like contacts, accounts, and opportunities. What I use in Salesforce is called the Nonprofit Success Pack, which is basically Sales Cloud adapted for nonprofits. So where Sales Cloud, you might expect to see a business-to-business model, the Nonprofit Success Pack kind of turns that around and offers a household and organization model. Similarly, Sales Cloud, you'll see opportunities, products, price books, and quotes. And all of those things exist in nonprofit, in the Nonprofit Success Pack, but you're going to see them referred to as things like donations or, thank you letters instead of quotes. I do have an interesting hack for products and price books that I've used to itemize my and value in-kind donations. So for those who are interested in seeing that, definitely feel free to reach out privately. But I love this diagram because it pretty much gives you Nonprofit Success Pack in one fell swoop, and the kind of relationship, the entity diagram as to how some of these things relate to each other. Where this comes in is Andrew and Yumil mentioned that there's an interest in marketing. So I'll kind of lay the foundation for the use case that I'll present here. Salesforce offers a lot of powerful tools to help customize business processes. One of those tools that's often the foundation for process automation and approval processes and all kinds of custom communications is a record type. Record type is just Salesforce speak for a way to divide records that are housed in the same object that might require different page layouts, business processes, and user experiences. I think Andrew told me that we have some Disney and Universal folks in the group. I happen to be a big Disney and Harry Potter fan, so I'll kind of use that as an example. Disney and Universal might have guests who have single-day, multi-day, or annual passes. And one way to use a record type would be to store guests with a different record type for each of those distinctions in order to segment campaigns, customize greetings and upsell protocols at call centers, or even provide special touches at different points of sale throughout the parks. So our use case will feature record types on the contact object with an automated kind of assignment based on what are called affiliations, just a fancy way to say where someone works, opportunities, which are donations, and those roll up into the contact records to kind of facilitate different totals and things. And those are facilitated through what we call opportunity contact roles, which is if or how a contact receives credit for a donation. And then the record types work in conjunction with our MailChimp integration to kind of streamline and automate email campaign segments. The campaign and campaign member objects are both used to segment fundraising revenue and also track campaign response. And then we deliver the insights about our donor file, basically our contacts, and our budgeted versus actual campaign performance through dashboards on a custom homepage for our fundraising team. So we'll see all of that kind of in action here. Everything is better with Alteryx, especially Salesforce. As you guys probably already know, resource limitations in nonprofit create some challenges. Funding for solutions isn't always available. I think I calculated that it would cost us $18,000 a year just for what Salesforce gives us for free. Human resources in terms of recruiting and compensation, the ability to attract people who are trained, who may be at a high level of sophistication. That's not always the case. And then also sometimes program and administrative priorities kind of clash, and program generally wins over admin. The nice thing about Alteryx and Salesforce is it really creates this accessible community. Before Alteryx, even with Salesforce, as wonderful as it is, I really spent a lot of time manually reviewing data to solve challenges, and those challenges are kind of outlined in this chart here. Excuse me, we're passing the flu around. But what I've noticed is that with Alteryx, what used to take me days, maybe sometimes weeks, embarrassingly enough, kind of start to take hours. And what that did was that freed up a lot of my time so that I spent less time in the weeds. I was less kind of burnt out, and I have more visibility and interaction with my team where it counts. Obviously, repeatable workflows really help with that. The Salesforce connector in Alteryx is valuable because you can pull and push data directly. I use it a lot for data prep and manipulation. Also some data blending. We had legacy data that was missing from our legacy system, and I was able to kind of pair that together and push it into Salesforce. It's also great for quality assurance. It shows me where the holes in my quality assurance measures in Salesforce might be, like, for example, duplicates or validation rules and things like that. So it shows me where the holes are, gives me an automated way to fix things, and improves our quality assurance altogether. And obviously, efficiency is a huge plus. More time innovating, less time maintaining. Some areas I'd love to explore further. Emil and Andrew also mentioned kind of an interest in maybe other BI tools that I use. We don't use anything else just yet, but I'd love to get further into reporting and analytics with Tableau, because Salesforce Wave Analytics is not really affordable to us as a nonprofit. So Tableau also has a nonprofit program similar to Alteryx and Salesforce that makes that a really affordable, accessible tool. So I'm excited to get into that. And then also exploring data migration. So for our client services integration, I'm going to need to move massive amounts of data and clean it up and get it in tip-top shape. And so that's one area where I'm definitely planning to take advantage of the Alteryx for Good collab. So moving on to the meat and potatoes. I'm so excited because today you guys are all going to be a nonprofit Salesforce admin. And it was an accident, right? Just like so many of us. But the idea is, our kind of use case here is that we're doing some development in Salesforce. And that development is in progress. And it's development around those record types that I was talking about, being able to segment our contacts. But unfortunately, the VP of development has a last-minute fundraising meeting, and your development timeline just went out the window. She has to report on new segmentation in an hour. So what we're going to have to do as A+ Salesforce admins is assign new contact record types for over 4,500 contacts on the fly. We don't have time to export them to Excel and sift through with filters and manually assign those. So we're gonna use Alteryx to make this happen and make it happen quick. All right. So for those of you who already use Alteryx, feel free to take a quick breather, maybe do some stretches at your desk. For those who are new to it, Alteryx is really easy to download, open, and get going with right away. So we're going to open Alteryx for the first time. And the nice thing about Alteryx is that when it opens, if you don't have time to waste, or if you're a tinkerer like I am, you kind of want to get just the lay of the land and then get going quickly. So I kind of understand here I need to connect to something. Great, that makes sense. I know that I'm going to have to drag and drop things to build this workflow, so that makes sense. I'm going to have to run it to get my results, and then great, I could probably push it back in. If I can pull data in, I can push it back out. So I use the Getting Started materials because I don't like to sit around and train all day long. I very much learn by doing. And the nice part about it is, you know, you want to be careful with your Salesforce connectors, but you really can't break anything in Alteryx. So let's go ahead and get started here on our workflow. So just from the brief introduction, we know that we're going to have to connect Salesforce to Alteryx. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quickly. We'll drag the Salesforce input tool down onto our palette here. You'll throw in your URL. You'll notice that I have a custom domain in mind. So if that's something that you have deployed, if you have a my domain, definitely make sure that you're using that, or your login is never going to work. You use your standard Salesforce username and password and your security token. For those who are Salesforce folks, finding the security token is the hardest part of this whole process of the connector. So once you're done with that, it's really simple. You're ready to start pulling data in from Salesforce. So next we'll set up the query that powers the workflow. And we're going to work with a contact object in this case. So we'll go ahead and select contact from the table dropdown. And then we'll select the fields that we need in order to analyze our data and assign our record types. So I'm going to select record type ID, which is the field that we'll be changing. Lifetime giving history, which is kind of one of the fields we'll have to analyze, along with soft credit total, legacy gifts total, and primary affiliation. So remember, those totals are roll-up fields on the contact object, and the primary affiliation is where someone works. So now we can kind of get started building our workflow here. Before we do that, let's quick review the record type. So I'll give you the scenario. Your ability to segment your donor base is really kind of your bread and butter. That's how you decide who gets newsletters and who gets annual reports and who gets this specialized lapsed donor mailing and who gets this email about our Santa's workshop. And so the base of our contact analysis is to be able to decide who's a donor, meaning who's actually made a monetary donation, either recorded in our legacy system or in Salesforce. Prospects, who are contacts who haven't quite decided that they like us enough to give us money yet. Organizational representatives, who are basically reps at organizations that work with us but who haven't made their own personal donations. And then employees, who are contacts currently of Homeward Bound regardless of their donation history. So with that in mind, let's build a workflow here to kind of divide our contacts up and assign the correct record type IDs so that we can create this analysis for our VP of development. So there's lots of different ways to complete the task at hand. I'm one that gets kind of easily flustered by syntax, so I really like to break things down one step at a time. So the way I'll start the workflow is by dividing the contact records into two categories: those who've made a donation and those who haven't. So those who've made a donation either have a lifetime giving, soft credit, or legacy total that's greater than 0. And we'll use the built-in custom filter interface to kind of create our expression and check syntax here. And then once we have the filter set up, we can run the workflow to test it. Alteryx will go ahead and confirm that the workflow ran successfully, and it'll tell us how long it took to process, which I appreciate. And then we're left with two pools of data: true, which are contacts who have made donations, and false, or contacts who have not made donations. So next, we'll set up the formula that will do kind of all the heavy lifting, starting with the donors and the true results category. We're going to create a formula that will assign the employee record type ID to any donor with Homeward Bound as their primary affiliation, and the donor record type ID to all donors who are not employees. So we'll use, again, the built-in interface to create the expression and check our syntax. And then moving on to non-donors here in a second, we will create the formula that will assign the prospect record type ID to any non-donor who doesn't have a primary affiliation, and the employee record type ID to any donor with Homeward Bound as their primary affiliation, and then the org rep record type ID to all non-donors, presumably those who have primary affiliations other than Homeward Bound. So the hardest part about this process was coming up with the kind of rationale behind the workflow, the thought process to go, okay, how would I quantify, dividing all of these donors and non-donors and figuring out, exactly what the definition of each of those record types is. We went ahead and tested the workflow again, and now we're left with two pools of data, donors with corrected record type IDs and non-donors with corrected record type IDs. So now that we've assigned the record type IDs, we're going to combine the two pools of data using the union tool. And we could use analytic tools to provide our VP of development with her report for her meeting. But since we've already done the data manipulation, we're just going to optimize our workflow to push our record types back in to Salesforce. So because some of our fields are read-only in Salesforce, we'll exclude those from our output to make the record updates successful using the select tool. And then we'll set up the Salesforce output connector using the same credentials we used on the input connector. So the good news is you already found your Salesforce user key. And next, we will configure our output, run the workflow, and confirm our changes in Salesforce. So we're going to push this information back into the contact object. We're going to select update. That workflow is running, and again, it'll tell us, that it was successful and how long it took. And once it's done running here, we will actually take a quick look here at the record type on my actual donor record. So we'll do a screen refresh once that workflow is done running. I'm sure the speed has a lot to do with my machine.
So Kelly, how much time will it take you to do this if you didn't have Alteryx?
I think the answer to my VP of development would have been, I don't think I can provide this to you in 1 hour. You have to wait for my development and Homeward and Salesforce to be done before I could do this. So you'll see that my record type was donor, which is wrong because I'm an employee. And now my record type is employee, just like it should be. So that way I'm not in there kind of skewing our donor analysis when we run these record types. And so, Yamil, to answer your question, not only would she have had to wait for the development to take place in Salesforce, Salesforce is nice in that it can automatically assign things like a contact record type anytime the record is changed. And so there's probably a case for running what they call an apex batch, where every night, all of our records get updated through different roll-up batches and contact and account batches. But let's say that we're trying to make a change that isn't supported. We would have had to export all of our data and change it manually anyway, and then push it back in. So that definitely, apart from being able in this scenario to say yes to our VP of development, it also saves us valuable time in development and being able to deploy all of our new fun, exciting customization so that we can actually start working with it and get to the results. So let's see what kind of new insights we achieved with our new segmentation. What you're looking at is a portion of our home tab, which has the dashboards I was telling you about for our team. And you can see down here in donor file analysis, we now have a breakdown of our entire contact file. You'll notice there are significantly more record types, probably about twice as many. I've since done some additional development to kind of segment these even more. And then because we're A+ admins, we also developed a scoring system to determine the quality of our records, which we can now analyze by contact type. We can even use a scoring system to provide insights on areas of opportunity to make our records more valuable to us. And then you can click through to the source reports that provide detail for our VP of development. So we've done this in record time. I can officially give her the breakdown of our constituent file, and I can give that to her in terms of percentages or even record counts. So now that she knows that we're capable of, she's probably going to keep challenging us, which is why you're going to need Alteryx again in the near future to do this. So with that said, now's the great part: discussion, Q&A, and feedback. So if you have questions, ideas, or suggestions, I would definitely love to answer questions or pick your brain if I've kind of sparked anything for you in terms of how you use Alteryx or Salesforce. Not everyone at once.
I think a lot of people are still muted. But I did want to say thank you, Kayla, for spending some time with us. And if you guys are interested in donating to her cause, there is a link on the user group page, and I'll go ahead and share that again as well. And then we will be posting the slides and everything from here. But right now you have her as a captive audience. So if you guys are just starting out with Salesforce or Alteryx, I know she'd be happy to answer your questions. So please go ahead and unmute yourselves, or if you guys would like to post questions in the chat, you can do that as well.
Let's
so
see. I don't see anything.
I definitely have one. Kayla, we had talked a little bit about while we were setting this up, getting to that API key. So the secret token, can you talk a little bit more about that? And what was the process like going and setting up some of those Salesforce connections initially?
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. At first, I told you I'm one of those people. I don't want to read the instructions. I want to tinker until I figure it out. And so I did do a fair amount of searching before I finally gave in and went to Salesforce's help and documentation resource to figure out exactly how to find that record key. And so let's see if I can, on the fly here, give you an idea here of where how someone could figure out how to do that. And what's nice is, let's see if and training. We're not even, well, let's pretend we don't even know anything about Salesforce. So we're like, oh, I can go get help here. And you could put in here, user key and see if you can find any resources on that. And let's see here. Probably
probably
not.
I think I do actually still have the link up. Let me see if I can.
Well, I can always.
Hey, Andrew, when there's some questions in the chat, so that you let you know.
Okay. Yeah, did you wanna read those off to her?
So, Kellen, one of them is from Robert. Any ideas on getting hidden or custom objects to show in the Salesforce input tool?
Getting custom objects, you said?
Mm-hmm.
It's my understanding that I think most of the input tool used to only be able to support standard objects. But Andrew, didn't you say the other day that there's now some development in the new versions of Alteryx to support custom objects?
Yeah, I thought I remember seeing some there, and then also if you go to the Alteryx gallery, there was one of the tools in there that did have grabbing the metadata layers out of there. So I think at that point you could also grab some of the hidden layers as well. Let me see.
Okay, here you go. Reset your security token. This is what I was looking for. So I found these instructions as I was working in Alteryx, and the light came on. Oh, that's how I do it. So from your personal settings, which in Salesforce you have this fun little icon in the top right-hand corner. It might be a picture of you. It might be kind of the stock picture here. You can get into your personal settings and reset your security token. So when that happens, you actually get an email to the email address associated with your user account, and voila, you have your security token. But it is atrocious to try to find it. I think I saw more questions here.
This one from Michael.
All right. What's next on our to-do list using Alteryx, and are we using any predictive modeling? So the nice thing about Salesforce is that it has this feature called forecasting. And we have about a year and a half, one fiscal year and a half worth of data in Salesforce currently. And so the next step is to kind of use that to enable us with that forecasting in Salesforce. Definitely, there's probably room for predictive modeling with some of the things we're working on right now that are membership-based, and particularly in nonprofit, when you, as a donor, make a multi-year commitment or a pledge. The nice part about that is that the nonprofit can book all of that revenue when you make that commitment. So if I make a $5,000 pledge, that's nice because that bolsters our revenue in our current fiscal year. But for the next 5 years, the cash that actually comes in is going to reduce that receivable. It's not actually new revenue. So when you have those multi-year commitments, you really have to be on top of things in order to say, you know what, I'm probably going to have to either convert X number of donors to major donors or attract X number of new donors in order to kind of not necessarily cover a gap, but in order to just be mindful about the fact that we've tied up this donor in a 5-year commitment that really only hits the books in the current year. So that's one thing we're working on, membership-based, that would really be valuable for predictive modeling. Next on our to-do list using Alteryx, right now where it's really shining is that I'm working with the finance department to make sure that we can reconcile our Salesforce fundraising records with finance. And a lot of nonprofits struggle in that area. You'd think it'd be a no-brainer, but it's harder than it looks. And so our new finance system has, for those who are familiar with business accounting, GL accounts or general ledger accounts for different areas of revenue and expense. But on top of that, to make things more exciting, this new finance system also has these codes called activities, which kind of subdivide the GL accounts without having to create extra GL accounts to really parse down, our financial data. So obviously, the Salesforce payments and GAU allocations model doesn't really support this idea of this activity. And so one thing that I've had to do is build some customization and put some development into customizing that to automatically assign the activity codes when a GL allocation takes place. And our finance director's favorite thing to tell me is that, Kayla, it's a moving target. So she would change things quite frequently. And I was like, if I put all this time into development right now, I'm going to have to go back and keep changing it. And so I used Alteryx to kind of bridge the gap. It was easier to go into Alteryx and change a rule for assigning an activity than it was to go back into Salesforce and rewrite a business process or rewrite a workflow. So I've been using it much in that way. And the next kind of part of the saga will be our client services integration. I think we're probably going to start that in the next couple of months here. And we're going to look at pulling data from our current property management system, which for those who are familiar is called Yardi. And then on top of that, or in addition to that, most people who work with any type of HUD funding have a system that helps them track as a community kind of their continuum of care of the individuals that they serve and the homeless population in a localized area. So Maricopa County has, they call it an HMIS system. HMIS just simply refers to the standard for the technology that supports organizations that work with HUD funding in different ways. And that system is administered by our Arizona 211. That's our emergency services support line for the state. And they have their own system, but I'm also going to be looking at either ways to pull data out of that and push it into Salesforce. It's probably going to look something like an external object, which is just Salesforce speak for I'm going to make the two systems talk to each other so that we don't have to duplicate efforts across systems the way we are right now. But if there are cases where maybe something in Salesforce or something in our HMIS system, they may not talk to each other, I'm interested in maybe hooking up HMIS to Alteryx and hooking up Salesforce on the other end and being able to push and pull data back and forth that way without, breaking anything. So definitely something I'm probably going to have to use the collab for because I think that's a little beyond my skill set, but I'm interested in learning from somebody who might be interested in helping with that. So great question.
So Michael, are you signing up for that one? You're even there and local for her. Awesome. That's glad to hear that. And for all of you guys that don't know Michael, he's actually a user group leader out there in Phoenix, and he's done an amazing job. And I know that Yumil and I are thankful to have him as a resource as well, both with Alteryx and Tableau. So thank you, Michael, for everything that you do for all of us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, and Michael is amazing. He was so patient with me just getting everything set up. I think I asked in 12 different ways, is this really free? When am I going to actually have to pay for something? and poor Mike and Teresa, and we're like, no, Kayla, it really is free. We really will help you. And I'm like, what do you mean you're going to help me for free? That just doesn't make sense. And so I think Mike and Teresa really kind of restored my faith in the tech world and really how much tech folks are willing to help out, where I think sometimes it's hard to ask for help or it's intimidating to ask for help. And another thing too is I love about the Alteryx and the Salesforce community is no one knows everything. There's always going to be something that you might need someone else's expertise for. There are people out there who have like 23 certifications, but even those folks don't know everything there is to know about Salesforce, and certainly a lot of them probably don't know everything there is to know about Alteryx. And so I like that it's humbling for one thing, so it keeps me grounded. But the other thing too is that it's okay to ask questions, and it's nice that Salesforce and Alteryx provide these knowledge bases where you can go and find the answers. Or if you can't find the answers there are communities where you can ask questions and help others who have questions. So I think regardless of the capability of the products and regardless of what you can accomplish with them, that idea of democratizing technology that until recently wasn't really that accessible to people like me in nonprofit is a huge breakthrough.
Nice.
Any other questions? Okay, so if you guys could help me, I'm always interested in improving both my craft and my presentation skills. So there's a link on a slide here. Let's put this back up, where you could go and maybe share some feedback about the content of the presentation and about whether or not I did a good job on that for you today. Also, again, feel free to take my my contact information for my business card. If it's a quick question, if it's you have an idea and you want to share something, or if you noticed that, like for example, the question about the custom objects, that's something new that I'll have to explore, especially with our client services integration. I've been lucky enough to only need the access to the standard objects, but if you have ideas about how we could use Alteryx, or if you want to help, also if you just want to chat and share how you're using Alteryx and ask questions about Salesforce, I'm happy to chat anytime. So please feel free to keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Kayla.
No, thank you guys. Thank you for having me.
Leave that up for one more second there.
And Andrew, just let me know when you want me to.
Yeah. There we go. And do you want to post that link there in the chat as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I will do that right now.
And then we do have one more quick announcement, and then we'll get into the helping with workflows. So we do have our next meeting scheduled. This one's going to be WebEx as well. And we'll be going through some more quick announcements. Tips and tricks will actually be run by some of the people on my team at Adventus. And then we did want to do something fun for a change for March. So we have March Madness going on. And then we have plenty of Olympic data as well, now that that's wrapped up. So we wanted to go through those two different sets of sports and just kind of learn some fun ways that we can use Alteryx to explore some of our passions.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to provide, send us, anything that you're interested in and that you want us to, get together, and we can provide that for new user groups, for new meetings, any specific topic, anything that you're looking for, let us know. Send us an email.
And if you are looking for our next in-person user group, that one will be in April, and we're solidifying the venue right now. And there is a sponsor for that, so it will be at a brewery, so free drinks and some free food as well.